Oh, thank goodness that is over with. Boys, lads, everybody out there, that was a nightmare. B2, oh, so much fog in that level, I can't even see what I'm doing. I feel like I'm bumping into enemies that don't even exist until I get smacked by them, in which case obviously they exist, but I still can't even see them. Like, it's almost as if I'm fighting shadow enemies. Ignore the fact that there are actually shadows in that level. That has nothing to do with it. But like, oh, that was insane. So much fog, barely could see what I was doing. But thankfully, we're done. We made it past. You know, as we could see, we're moving on to B3. And there's no way there's nearly as much fog in B3, right? Like, no way. 0% chance. There's no way 10 chambers would do 2 levels with a ton of fog in them back to back. Like, that would be...
Ah, here we go again.
Hello everyone, Professor Scaler here, and welcome to my R7B3 level guide. Hopping right into it, we're going to start with the recommended loadout, just like we always do. So for this stage, I recommend you bring with you a bio tracker, a mine deployer, and 2 sniper sentries. The reason for the bio tracker is because 1, bio tracker is a great tool that, in all honesty, you should bring into almost every single level, in my opinion. 2, there's a lot of infectious fog in this level, which is going to hinder your sight and make it a lot easier for the enemies to sneak up on you and attack you before you have the chance to fight back. So having a bio tracker that we could tag them long in advance will help out tremendously, especially for the ending of the level. And 3, we are running double sniper sentries, and sniper sentries do get benefited by the bio tracker when you tag enemies, making them shoot a little bit faster, consume less ammunition, and just overall being a whole lot more efficient. So bio tracker will help out quite a bit with this loadout. When it comes to the mine deployer, I'm recommending this because there is a blood door you're going to have to go through in this level, as well as 2 alarm doors. It'll help out a bit for the first one, but the second one, with the strategy we're going to use, mine deployer isn't going to be that great of a tool, but it will help out later in the level when we go for the overload objective, and it can also help out quite a bit for the ending portion of the level. So mine deployer is a great tool. I just would recommend you don't put too much tool refill into it, as the starting amount of mines you get could potentially last you the entirety of the level. So if anything, maybe put 2, 3, or 4 uses into mine deployer, but not too much more. The rest of your tool refill should be going into the 2 sniper sentries, which the reason I'm recommending these is because we want a little bit of extra firepower. There's a fair amount of ammunition in this level, but if you make too many mistakes, you are going to be running low pretty quickly. So these sniper sentries are going to help us out during the alarm doors we have to deal with. They're going to help out tremendously for the extreme objective portion of the level, since we have to go out into a desert arena and survive multiple times over. And the very ending of the level, you're going to be dealing with some more powerful enemies, things like chargers and giant chargers, assuming you go for the overload objective, that is. So having the sniper sentries to give us even more extra firepower will help out greatly, because burst sentries don't really work the best against chargers, and especially not giant chargers, and shotgun sentries just unfortunately aren't really in a good position right now. They don't really do enough damage to warrant their usage, so we want to rock with the double sniper sentries just because great with a bio tracker, really long range that we can take advantage of in this level, and more powerful enemies that they will work excellently against. Dropping down into the level, you'll see that your main objective is to collect a DNA sample from a specific HSU, and this HSU will always be located inside zone 112, and you're going to be starting off inside zone 105. And upon just taking a few steps into the level, you'll notice that there are a bunch of weird cocoons all over the ceiling, which if you're new to the game with this rundown, you might not know what these are. So simply put, these are respawn cocoons. If you see these in a zone, that means any enemy throughout that zone that is killed off will respawn once you have left the zone and gone far away enough from it. So in this situation, everything that's in this first zone, zone 105, will respawn if you kill it once you leave the area. But there aren't usually too many enemies inside zone 105 that and there are resources we can collect, so I would recommend you just simply melee kill every single one of them, and then just remember that whenever you come back to this zone, these enemies will be back. The nice thing though is that they will be the same type of enemies and they will be in the same locations as they were the first time you killed them. So I do recommend that as you go through here killing off these enemies, pay attention and try to remember where they were located. That way when you have to come back later, you know exactly where you have to keep an eye out for enemies and where you can walk a bit more freely. Other than that though, zone 105 really doesn't have anything I need to take note of, so we can move to the back end of it, and we can find the security door to zone 106, which is just going to be a full team scan door. Upon entering into zone 106, you'll see another security door to the right of you immediately, this one taking you to zone 107. However, this security door is locked and requires a color keycard in order to get into it. So we're going to need to travel further into the zone, where eventually when we get to the back room, we'll find 2 more security doors, one to zone 114 and one to zone 115, both of these security doors being blood doors. And one of these 2 zones is going to have that color keycard. So hop onto the terminal that is also in the room with the 2 security doors, figure out which one of the 2 has your key card, and then you can head over to it, place a mine on the door, open it up, fall back, then just deal with any of the enemies that are still left over from the mine, and once they're all dead, you can head into the respective zone, grab more resources, collect the key card, and once you have all that in hand, you can go back into 106, go all the way down to the security door 107, plug that key card in, and you'll see that there's only a full team scan tied to the door. Inside zone 107, you'll be able to find a few different things. There'll be a fair amount of enemies, there'll be some resources, but more importantly, you can find the bulkhead door control and the door to your extreme objective. You can also find 2 other security doors. However, you don't really have a whole lot of options on how to proceed because you do not have the bulkhead key by this point, so you can't do anything with the door control, and one of those 2 security doors requires a color key card in order to open it up. So our only option is to head to the south to the security door to zone 108 and then set up for that, because that is going to be a class 4 cluster alarm door. As you can see with the map overlay, there's only one location where enemies can spawn from. However, we're not going to be taking advantage of every single one of the doors here. We're actually going to be leaving these 3 doors here open because we need to preserve them later for an alarm door that we have to deal with later in the level, because these doors are much more important for it. So instead, we leave the 3 open, and then this door right here, you're going to shut it, mine it, and maybe seafoam it if you do happen to come across a seafoam grenade or 2. And then as for your sentries, you can place them in the room with you facing towards that door. Since they are sniper sentries, I recommend you place them a bit further back, maybe about halfway into the room, and then have 1 sentry on the right side and 1 on the left. That way, ideally, the sentries target different enemies and they're not just simply shooting at the same enemy over and over again and wasting ammunition. But once you have all the doors set up how you need to and you got your sentries down, you can go over, activate the alarm door, and get to work on the scans. Something to take note of though is that during this alarm door, some of the scans will go down into the fog, so it's a very good idea to make sure you have fog repellers on hand. As a matter of fact, you should actually have fog repellers on hand for the entirety of the level because there are a lot of rooms that will be covered in infectious fog. So fog repellers are going to be your best friend in this area. Once you finish your alarm door though and all the enemies are dead, you can go out, collect your sentries, and then open up the security door to 108 and head right on inside. Upon opening up the security door to zone 108 though, a partial blackout is going to occur, and this blackout is going to affect all of zone 108 itself as well as zone 109. However, there is a terminal inside zone 108 to the far western side of it that you can actually use to restore power to these 2 zones. So if your team wants to make a slight detour, you can head to the western side of the zone to find the terminal to restore the power, or if you don't really care, you could just simply head to the eastern side where you find the security door to zone 109. Something to take note of though is that this entire zone is a respawn zone, so any enemies that you kill inside zone 108 will respawn and you have to deal with them or stealth past them when you come back after collecting everything you need inside zone 110. When it comes to the security door to zone 109 though, this is just going to be a full team scan door, so you can easily just make your way right through here. Zone 109 doesn't really have anything too special I need to take note of, so we'll just jump to the back end of it where we'll find the security door to zone 110, and this, just like the previous security door, is just going to have a full team scan tied to it. In here, you're going to find a pretty fair amount of resources as well as a lot of enemies guarding them, but you'll also be able to find the first bulkhead key as well as the color key card that you need in order to progress with the rest of the main objective. So go throughout here, deal with the enemies, collect both of the key cards, and grab all the resources that you can, and then once you have all that in your possession, start backtracking your way all the way back to zone 107. Again, be a little bit careful when you go through zone 108 since it has a respawn zone, but once you make it back out into 107, you could go over to the bulkhead door control, plug your bulkhead key into it, and this will cause a scan for the extreme objective to appear. Finish that scan, and that will unlock the security door to zone 230, which is also located in the room with you. So at this point, we now have 2 options that we could do. We can either continue out the rest of the main objective and go to the security door to 111, or we could go and do the extreme objective by going to the bulkhead door to zone 230. So if you're somebody who's only interested in the main objective portion of this video, jump to the timestamp that you see on screen. There we will continue on with 111. However, for the rest of us, we're going to head to the security door zone 230, open it up as it's just an open bulkhead door, and head in and deal with the extreme objective. Upon entering into zone 230, you'll see that your extreme objective is to collect 3 data cubes, and these data cubes will always be in the same areas. The first one being inside zone 230 with you, the second one being inside zone 231, and the final one being inside zone 232. Now, inside zone 230, there will never be any resources for you to collect, just simply some enemies, the data cube, as well as some other random consumables you can find in boxes and lockers. So go through here, clear out every single one of the enemies. If you're having a hard time finding which box or locker has the data cube in it, use the terminal in the zone to ping it. And then once you find it, let your teammates know. Do not pick it up right away, because upon picking it up, it is going to teleport you and your entire team out into the desert arena. And out here, you have one simple goal, and that is just to survive. In this instance of the desert arena, you need to survive for about 1 minute before your team is automatically teleported back out into zone 230. So I recommend that when you go out there, go to the location that you can see me and my team holding out in the background footage. You're going to place 1 sentry to the left of you and 1 to the right of you. The reason for this is because while you're out here, obviously you're going to have enemies coming after you, otherwise it won't be a challenge. And these enemies are going to be things like strikers and shooters, as well as a few flyers. So the sentry to the left will help you with any spawns that come from that direction, the one to the right will help you with any spawns that come from that direction, but they are not going to help you when it comes to the flyers, who will be pretty much right in front of you up in the sky. So what I recommend you do is, depending on what type of weapon you have, you're going to want to focus on a different type of enemy. If you have mid to long range precision type weapons, things like maybe the Hell Revolver, the Precision Rifle, a regular revolver, or maybe the DMR, you should be focusing on the flyers first, because you are out in the open and they can get very easy damage in on you if you are not dealing with them quickly. As for other people who have maybe automatic weapons like assault rifle, machine gun, or shotguns, you guys should be focusing on the strikers and shooters that come up to you, as they are a little bit more of a dangerous threat, because if they get right on top of you and your team, a lot of panic is about to ensue, and this will most likely cause your entire team to wipe. But once you get teleported back into 230, the security door to 231 will now be unlocked, and you can go over there and open it up. And inside zone 231, it's basically the same thing. There will be some enemies, this time there will be resources, so make sure you grab those to restock, and somewhere in here you'll find your second data cube. Upon picking up, you'll be teleported back to the same arena, and you're going to do pretty much the exact same thing again. Go to the same spot, do the same strategy. The only thing though that you have to take into consideration is, instead of being out here for 1 minute, you're now out here for about 2 minutes, so you have to survive for a little bit longer, but the type of enemies you can expect to see is pretty much the exact same. Once you've survived for those 2 minutes, you get teleported back to 231, the security door at 232 will now be unlocked, you go over to it, open it up, head to the zone, and just rinse and repeat. Clear out every single one of the enemies, careful as I believe 1 or sometimes even 2 scouts can spawn inside this zone, then just collect any resources you can to restock a bit, find the location of the data cube, and then when your team is ready to go, pick it up, and you'll be teleported back out to the arena again. This time you are going to be spawning pretty much on the opposite end of the place you want to hold out at, so you do want to run pretty quickly to get over there, and then set up your sentries before the waves of enemies hit you. You also need to be a little bit more careful, because you will be out here for about 2.5 minutes, which isn't a whole lot longer thankfully, but the enemies have been upgraded. Instead of just simply strikers and shooters with some flyers, you're now going to have strikers and shooters, a lot more flyers, as well as occasional hybrids, which are very dangerous because you are out in the open, and when about 30 seconds are left on that timer, you are going to have an armored flyer spawning in. Which usually for me, what I like to do is, once I see that armored flyer spawn in, I just run for it. Because running around out here for about 30 seconds really isn't all that difficult, and trying to deal with an armored flyer if you don't have a weapon like maybe the sniper rifle can be a little bit difficult, and you are out in the open, so 1 good shot from him could very easily take down 1, maybe even 2 people on your team if they're stacked on top of each other. So I like to run around a bit when I see the armored flyer spawn in, but you could also just hold out. If you have a sniper rifle, just 1 shot him in the mouth and he's gone. And once the 2.5 minutes have transpired, you'll be teleported back to 232, and your extreme objective is basically completed. The only thing left for you to do is now go to the security door to zone 233, which has been unlocked. Go in there, there'll never be any enemies in here, just a ton of resources, as well as your second bulkhead key. So grab the resources, restock, get the key, and then once you have that, you can head all the way back to the security door to zone 111, because now we can continue on with the rest of the main objective. So let's do a little bit of a transition right here and meet up with the rest of the people watching the guide, that way we can all continue on together as a team. Hey, so we're all back together again, continue on with the rest of the main objective, starting off with the security door to zone 111, which is going to have a class 4 alarm tied to it. So let's take a look at a map overlay, shall we? As you can see, there are 3 different locations that enemies can spawn from, and there are quite a few doors that we need to make sure we set up properly, that way the security scan is as smooth as butter as we can possibly make it. So these 2 doors right here, you're going to want to make sure both of these doors are kept shut, but you do not need to mine them, as enemies will never go through these 2 doors. This northern door here, this needs to be shut and mined, that way if a wave spawns from back there, they will almost all get blown up by the mine on the door. And then this door right here, very, very crucial, make sure this door is left open. That way if enemies spawn from the south, they go through that open door and then go through the catwalk a little bit and then go down the ramp that leads to the far western side of the room, and they have to come across the bottom portion of the room to get to you. This is incredibly important because if enemies spawn from the west or the north as well, they have to take that exact same route, which means no matter where these enemies come from, they have to take the same path to get to us and our teammates, which makes it a lot easier for us to set up our sentries. You could just place 1 at the bottom of the room about halfway through facing towards the ramp, and then 1 towards the top of the staircase towards you a little bit where the security door is. That way it's at a higher elevation, so it could shoot at the enemies who are below on the ground, and also shoot up above at the enemies who are on the ramp. This is nice because we don't always want our sentries shooting in the exact same location, as sometimes they can waste shots when they do that. But once you have all of your defenses set up and you're good to go, activate this alarm door, work on the scans. They will almost always go down into the fog, so make sure you have some fog repels with you, that way you can more easily do the scans and deal with the enemies. And then once all the scans are done, deal with the rest of the enemies are still alive. Once they're dead, pick up your sentries, and then you can open up the security door to Zone 111. Zone 111 itself has really nothing I need to take note of whatsoever, just enemies and resources. So we're going to jump to the far end of it, where we'll find the security door to Zone 112, which is just going to have a checkpoint scan tied to it. A thing to take note of though is once you open up the security door and you take a few steps into Zone 112, it is going to cause the fog levels in the entire stage to start rising up quickly. This will not infinitely rise, there is a limit to it, but it will make pretty much every previous room without this level covered in infectious fog, and it will make the room you're about to head into mostly covered. So make sure nobody's AFK at the time when you're going into the room, otherwise you're going to cap them out on infection and potentially waste a lot of their HP. But once you head in, you can look around a bit. Inside Zone 112, there's a lot to take note of. You'll be able to find the HSU you need for the main objective. You'll be able to find a disinfect station, so you can get rid of all of your infection for free. You'll be able to find a fog turbine, which is incredibly important because the fog levels are higher. And you will also be able to find the bulkhead door control and door to the overload objective. So what I recommend you do is go throughout here, disinfect your team if you can, or if need be, I should say, you definitely can. You have a station for crying out loud. Grab the resources, restock a bit, and then take the fog turbine, go down into the middle of the room, and go down below where you'll find the HSU and activate the scan. But do not finish it quite yet. You just want to preload the scan to about 90 to 95%, and then you're going to want to go back up and then head to the door control, plug your bulkhead key into it, do the scan for the overload objective, and this will unlock the security door to 314. Now, if you're not interested in doing the overload objective and you're just doing the main objective, there is a little bit of setup we need to do. But because the overload objective itself is pretty short and actually ties in with the ending of the main objective portion, I want to talk about that real quick. So just bear with me for a few minutes while we quickly go over that segment, and then we'll talk about how you can set up all your defenses for the ending of the level, and then how we can make our way back to extraction. But for the rest of us, obviously, we're going to open up that security door to Zone 314. It's just an open bulkhead door, and then head in so we can do our overload objective. Inside Zone 314, you'll see that your overload objective is to retrieve the cargo case from inside the zone and bring it with you all the way back to the beginning of the level, specifically Zone 105, where your extraction scan will be waiting for you once you finish the HSU scan inside Zone 112. But before we go about collecting this cargo, we need to deal with all the enemies in here, specifically all the chargers and giant chargers that will be filling up this room, which is a bit annoying because this room is also very dark and there's also a fair amount of infectious fog in it. So you can either try to stealth kill the isolated enemies first and then maybe just pull the last few once you've dealt with most of them, or if you have a lot of ammunition and you just don't want to risk losing the health, you could just simply pull the entire room and fight back out in Zone 112 above the fog levels and in the light. If you do this though, I do recommend you place down some mines sort of near the overload bulkhead door, higher up though, so only the giant chargers run to them and the regular chargers just go underneath them. And then also place down one or both of your sentries, and that way you have some extra firepower, because there will be a lot of enemies inside Zone 314. As for you and your team, as you can see with my team doing the background footage, we're just defending on the far western side. That way there's as much distance between us and the chargers as we can get, so we minimize the amount of damage we take from them. But once you deal with all the enemies at 314, you could go throughout it, collect all the resources, and then once you do that, you could go to the northeast corner of it, where I believe you should always find your cargo case. I think this is a set spawn, although I might be wrong, it might spawn elsewhere in the room. If that is the case though, just simply use the terminal to ping the location, and then when you know where it is, you're going to want to make sure you do not pick it up, because when you pick up that cargo, it will initiate an error alarm that spawns in 4 chargers roughly every 30 seconds. And this alone isn't too bad, but pair this up with the HSU extraction alarm and it gets a bit dicey, because when you finish that HSU scan, it spawns in a wave of about 12 strikers or shooters in the room with you, and then it will start an extraction alarm that spawns in 4 strikers or shooters roughly every 35 seconds. So from this point on, you basically have to deal with 2 error alarms, and you have to carry 2 items. You have to carry the cargo and the fog turbine, because like I said earlier, the entire level is covered in infectious fog. So you gotta go all the way back to the beginning, and this is gonna make it difficult because chargers can very easily hit you without actually being visible to you, because they have a longer tongue attack distance. So they can hide in the fog and hit you from afar, a reason why the biotracker is so important. So we're gonna wanna set up a few defenses before we get everything going. The first thing is make sure everybody on the team is holding on to stacks of fog repellers, either 3 stacks or 4 stacks. Or if you want one person on the team to hold on to a seafoam grenade, that's fine. You just ideally want to have around 10 to 12 fog repellers among the team. That way when you get back to extraction, you could drop the turbine and throw fog repellers and more safely deal with the enemy, since all 4 of you are shooting. and you can see them from a bit of a safer distance. The second thing you're going to want to do is place down both of your sentries. One sentry you're going to want to place near the security door between 112 and 111, facing towards the west. That way when enemies come from that direction, they get shot at by the sentry. And the second one you want to place in 112 with you towards the southeast corner of it, facing towards the west. That way, if enemies make it past the first sentry and they climb up the stairs to get to the room, they have to go along the railing there and they have to go through the line of fire of that second sentry before they could get to you and your team. Which helps out a lot because this makes it so that nothing should get down to you while you're going down below and doing the HSU scan. And then the final thing that you're going to want to do is where you see this screenshot here, that fog turbine right there with the green marker above it, you're going to want to place 3, 4, maybe even 5 mines in this general vicinity. And the reason for that is because, like I said, when you finish that HSU scan, it spawns in a wave of about 12 enemies in the room with you. And from my experience, these enemies almost always spawn right here in this spot, or at least very close to it. So if you have these mines set up in advance, there's a good chance that most, if not all of those enemies are going to be killed off right away. So the only enemies you have to deal with are the ones spawning in from the extraction alarm and the error alarm, which makes it a lot easier to get out of zone 112, which is actually one of the harder parts because going with the forward spawns is always harder. But if you can get the waves to spawn behind you, you have a lot more breathing room. But this won't happen until you get into zone 111 because there's only one room to the east of you. So if you're in 112, they can only spawn ahead of you to the west. So place the sentries, place down a few mines, and then when you're ready to go over to the cargo. One person picks it up. The other 3 people could just simply wait near the overload bulkhead door with the fog turbine in hand since that area is covered in infectious fog. Go down below, go into 112. You can drop off the cargo somewhere in the room since you don't have to take it all the way down to the bottom with you. And you could just either walk down with the fog turbine, or if you want to throw 2 fog repellers down below, you could do that as well. So you could just simply run down there, finish the HSU scan, and then start making your way back up. Biotracker person, make sure you're not carrying anything because you are super important. You need to be tagging these enemies as often as you can for your teammates and letting them know if there's still enemies alive, and if they are, again, either tagging them or if you can't, calling it out so your teammates know. Because these enemies will be enveloped by the infectious fog once you go further into the level, so you're not going to be able to easily see them. As for the person carrying the fog turbine, you're going to want to make sure that you're just simply holding on to it. Don't drop that thing unless if people throw fog repellers or if you see 1 or 2 people go down, in which case you need to help out immediately. Person carrying the cargo, yes, you want to carry it with you, but if there's a wave in front of you and you're about to deal with it, drop it and help your teammates because you're not just going to be holding W and going through them, otherwise you're going to get killed super easily. And as for the person who is not carrying anything, you're going to be sort of the primary shooter. As soon as you hear your person on the biotracker tell you there are enemies in front of you and they tag them, you want to start open firing at them. Even if you cannot actually see them yet because of the fog, just shoot at the pings and get rid of them quickly. That way you can just keep pushing your way forward. This is probably the hardest part of the level, but once you start making it a little bit further, it gets easier because the waves can potentially spawn behind you. So if they do, you could shut the door behind you, mine it, and if you have a C-foam grenade, you could C-foam it, which will buy you extra time. But slowly make your way back to zone 105. Be careful when you go into 105 since that is a respawn room. I recommend if you can, just simply go left and go up the staircases, then go through the big door at the top, shut behind you, and then either go down the ramp or continue along a little bit, go down this ladder, and then get into the extraction scan. Once you get in it, drop the cargo in it, drop the fog turbine, throw a fog repeller on top of the scan with you and one further out across the bridge from where the enemies are coming from, plop down both of your sniper sentries facing out that direction, and if you can, place down a few mines. At this point, you just need to hold out. This could either go really smoothly for you and your team, or it can go pretty dicey. This really just depends on how many enemies are right there next to you and how many enemies were in your respawn zone with you. But if you can stabilize the situation and you have the resources to hold out, you should be fine. This is a fairly long scan you have to deal with, but if you can manage to get the scan all the way up to 100%, even if only one of you is still alive at the very end, you are done and you have beaten R7B3. And that's all there really is to it. R7B3 definitely turns up the difficulty a bit compared to the previous levels in this rundown, especially that ending right there. But hey, that's to be expected from any level that has both an extreme and an overload optional objective. Prisoner efficiency levels typically require you to be on your A game if you hope to succeed. As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that I was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this level. If you have any tips or tricks for this level that you want to share, any questions from me, or you just have something in general that you want to say, please let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join the community I'm building, there's a link to my Discord down in the description, as well as some other cool links. Among those links being one that will take you to the official GTFO merch store, which I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast. Until next time, Have fun going even further into the complex. Hopefully next time we won't have to worry about fog nearly as much, because I can already hear people complaining about 2 fog levels back to back, but hey, we'll have to see what C1 has in store, I suppose. And I will hopefully see you all in the next video.